I'm a DJ boy, going to Dcentral, making NFT from the values, being crypto poor but JPay rich.
So with that being said, let me introduce to our stage the moderator for our panel, Miss Leah Callon-Butler.
Is this on? Awesome. Hi everybody, thank you for that amazing introduction. My name is Leah and I'm the director of Emfarsis, which is an advisory and investment firm. We're focused on social impact using Web3 technologies. I also write for CoinDesk. I've had an opinion column on their website for a few years, mainly looking at how blockchain is being adopted across Southeast Asia. And I'm also usually based in the Philippines, so I'm not sure if anyone here has seen the Play to Earn documentary about the rise of NFT gaming in the Philippines, but I was the writer and narrator of that little mini film, so check it out on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's called Play to Earn. We're going to talk about that today because back when I first started researching the rise of Axie Infinity in the Philippines, this was mid-2020, the pandemic was in full force, everyone was in lockdown, and the idea of being able to escape to a virtual world when people were stuck in their own homes was a very exciting prospect. And we saw that adoption really take off throughout 2021. But I think the topic has actually attracted a lot of criticism since then. There's been a lot of pushback against NFTs in general, but also the aesthetic of these virtual worlds, the usability, the access, and so on. So we're going to chat about that today. Carmelo, Rob, Alex, you want to come out and join me on stage? Give them a round of applause, come on. Hey guys, I've just talked about myself for way too long, so how about you introduce yourselves too?
I'll go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, my name is Rob Clarke. I work for a company called Reality Gaming, and we started off producing a game called Reality Clash, which was a NFT AR game in the dawn of NFTs, really, in about 2017. And we moved on then to starting to produce a game called Worlds Apart, which is a Doctor Who licensed crypto game. It's like a trading card game. Falls between Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering in terms of complexity. And we're now working with a lot of different brands that have seen Doctor Who and are trying to work out a way to enter the space, whether it's through Metaverse, whether it's through some sort of Web3 project online only, or whether it's through an actual game, which is obviously the big, scary one for people to sort of get into. So we work with those companies and we try to fit their ideals into this new space.
Hi, my name is Carmelo, Milian. I'm the CEO of Polka City. Polka City is a metaverse with its own full economy where everything that you see in it is an NFT. All the cars, the gas stations, the planes, boats, everything in the city is owned by our community, and they play and they make money in an economy.
Hey guys, and I'm Alex Nase. I'm not Tracy. Different picture. Yeah, I know, right? I run a very high quality metaverse called TCG World. We've been building quite a bit under the radar for the last like 10, 11 months, and now we are showing what we've been building to the entire world, like literally just starting this last month. So we got a demo here. It's at a booth. It's fully built out everything, and we're all about very high quality graphics, gameplay. We believe a metaverse should be where people have fun going into, but after experience it, they want to come back and they want to continue to do fun things. And so you'll get to see a little bit about what I'm talking about, and as we go through the questions, I can talk a little bit more. But yeah, my name's Alex Nase, and then TCG World is our metaverse upstairs.
Love it, thanks guys. So I want to get this one out of the way. How do we feel about the term metaverse anyway? Do we have a definition for it, or is it just like another one of those overused buzzwords like innovation or decentralization that people are just using over and over again? Because the concept of a metaverse has been around for a really long time. This isn't really new. So what is new about it now? Who wants to tackle that?
Well, Right. So I mean, the metaverse is started like a buzzword, right? And I mean, for example, Polka City is over a year old now since we started developing it, and we were doing this before everybody was calling it a metaverse, right? And I remember doing some type of VR probably like 20 years ago. When I was working for Microsoft, we play with all that technology. So the metaverse is nothing new. AR is nothing new. The first AR was built in 1968 by a guy in Harvard. So this is technology that we've been putting together all these years, and now somebody comes and says it's the metaverse. And so the metaverse is nothing new. It's something that is going to keep evolving, and it's not just another website. Like many people are even building websites and calling them metaverses. so that's the thing. It's kind of a buzzword for all the new technology we have laying around.
Yeah, and it's such a good question because like that's really like what is the metaverse? There's a lot of like you ask 20,000 different people what their definition is of the metaverse, you're going to get 20,000 different answers, and so. In Alex Nase opinion only, so not the opinion of Wikipedia or anybody else, I believe like a full, like dramatized, interactive, immersive, virtual living world is kind of what I envision the metaverse to be. So a place that you can work, a place that you can socialize, a place that you can go play games and go hang out with grandma who lives on the West Coast and go do like an escape room together or watch a movie together or host your business or host education and all sorts of different industries existing in this world. So it's not just like a one game thing, it's all sorts of different industries. So I kind of like to think of it as like at least with us, like a very high quality like train station. And through it are all these different rails or all these different industries, education, music, entertainment, school, philanthropy, charity, like all these different rails kind of coming through this one awesome platform is kind of like what I envision the metaverse to be. I think a good example, has anyone seen like the movie Ready Player One or read the book? Show of hands, just out of curiosity, if you've seen Ready Player One. So that's kind of like what I think is a good example of like where it could go. But it definitely is a word that is thrown around loosely. And some projects are like, yeah, we're a metaverse. And I look at it, it's like, So yeah, my definition definitely is a little bit different than others on it, but that's kind of what I envision it to be.
I feel like Rob's going to have a different take on this again.
Go for it.
But I was going to say, like, personally, I agree the Ready Player One thing, right? And that's to dream to have that full haptic feedback VR vision, right? And so when we talk about the metaverse, if you're talking about what it is right now and what it could be, those are two very different conversations. When we talk to brands, they don't really know, right? They come to us and they say, okay, we need to do Web3, we want to do a metaverse, and we say, okay, what do you want to do? And then they tell us, and we go, okay, well, we could work with Sandbox, or we could work with TCG, right? We can work with these guys, and we can produce something for you within those existing platforms. And they go, what? We have to share? Are other competitors and brands going to be on those platforms? Why would we do that? And then you have to explain sort of what do you want? Yes, we can make you a metaverse with a 3D world in a space. It's going to be just this isolated island of something. And maybe if you're just BMW and you want to just be able to show people, for example, like how a car looks on the inside on your website, cool. You want to call that a metaverse? Call it a metaverse, But the real ideal for us in this room, I would imagine for most of us, is to have these businesses learn and educate them on the power of interoperability. And you have to do that at a very senior level sometimes, and it's something that takes time. We're able to use the word interoperability now without people staring at us confused. So I think we're getting somewhere, because last year that was not the case at all.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When we bring customers and companies to the metaverse, we got to tell them you want to join the metaverse, not we're going to create a metaverse. I know of a huge bank that was like, oh, metaverse, we got to go to metaverse. So they hire a whole bunch of developers for a bank, and they got their metaverse. So what you doing with that? You're not interacting with other metaverses. You're not interacting with, you're not getting new customers. You're just giving a 3D game to your customers, right? So that brings me to another thing. I believe that a true metaverse has to integrate with other metaverses. If you have just your metaverse and it's just your 3D world and you're bringing customers there and nobody can come in, this is my place, then that's not a metaverse. That's just a 3D game.
I hear you loud and clear. I have a question that might sound a bit non-Web3, but hear me out. I want to talk about aesthetics, because at the moment, like you mentioned the sandbox, which I'm a huge fan of, but you know, it gets a lot of criticism because it's pixelated. Our PFPs on Twitter, they're all cartoons. I'm wondering, you know, do you think this aesthetic is going to endure in metaverses, or are we going to start to see more sophisticated graphics? Likewise, you know, I think there's still a tendency to be kind of skeuomorphic. That is, all the things that we have in digital worlds, they kind of resemble what is in the real world. Like, we might not be really kind of figuring out what we can really do in terms of the full potential of these worlds. So, I want to talk about aesthetics, but I'm thinking, you know, maybe the Web3 community can actually kind of weigh in on that, because we have these new elements of ownership and the creator economy to kind of build it. Like, what do you guys think about this? Where is it going? Are we just like super early now?
Well, I mean, so that's kind of us, right? So we're all about like 4K, high quality. Look, I believe people, like businesses, celebrities, users, like people want to be in something high quality, right? Like that's you, that's your brand, right? I can't imagine like a company like Nike being in a metaverse where you can't even make out their logo because of like low quality. So I think aesthetics really are an important thing, but it's also a balance, because I've met with some other upcoming metaverse projects. Like we've been in development for a year, but I've met with some other projects that are just kind of starting out, and they're trying to go like hyper-realism, like hyper-realism. Like you can see like arm hair and like sweat glands and stuff. And although it looks cool, you also have to build something that is for your customer base, right? Like the average user like doesn't have a crazy graphics card. Like if people that know graphics card, I'd say like average people have like a 960 or a 1060 like graphics card. So you don't want to build something that is going to be outrageously expensive. And you want to make it so that it looks good, but it also has different styles of play. Like VR looks really cool, but it's hard to play VR for like multiple hours. Like I can't play VR for 8 hours. I don't know if everybody else is like me, I start to get a headache. So you want it to be available for the masses. You want it to make it look good. But the most important thing out of all of it, it doesn't matter how good your metaverse looks. If the multiplayer is clunky and it's a bad user experience, people aren't going to want to go back. So while other companies are so hyper-focused on graphics and making it look awesome, they need to also be with the same amount of passion over the user experience. It has to be fun, and you can't have all these bugs and clunky, laggy multiplayer, because that's not something you want to go back to. So it needs to be that strong balance. And sometimes people hyper-focus on one over the other. I think it should be like both. Focus on making it look good, but also that it plays good.
I agree with him 100% that too. If I wanted pixelation in my gaming, I'll dust off my Atari and connect it again. so I believe that the experience, if we're talking about the metaverse and with a nice creation of these avatars, that our avatars actually look like ourselves, right? They take a picture and you can have your avatar look like yourself, you dress it like yourself. You can sign its identity so that you can make sure that nobody steals your avatar and that kind of thing, right? So the quality is it needs to be so good that the immersion confuses you where you are, you know, and especially since the technology is catching up, because the problem was, I mean, these headsets, they were terrible, you know. Now the Oculus 2, I mean, at least, right? And this expensive headsets, but that's the problem. If you create the the highest quality available to create right now, it's not going to run in your headset. So you need to either do these inversions. What we're doing at Polka City is, so we don't do mobile yet because the quality that we have is too high for mobile. It's just desktop, PC and Macs. But we are doing subsets of the metaverse, different gamifications that are going to go to mobiles. People are going to be able to trade their NFTs in mobile apps and everything, but it is connected to the metaverse. So when they go to the metaverse, they bring in all their NFTs, all their cars, all their clothing, everything there. So I mean, the idea, the goal of the metaverse should be an experience. It's an entire experience that it will encompass. Yes, we're going to be VR. Yes, we're going to be in the mobiles. Yes, we're going to be in the PC, in the desktops. We have to leverage all the technology to deliver the experience.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you guys on that. And the accessibility thing is a big thing when we talk to brands, right? So if you go outside and you watch people at lunchtime, and like, we're an entrepreneurial and a sort of industry, right? And everyone's got a top of the line MacBook Pro or an Alienware laptop. And that's what they're using these metaverses on. But when we talk to broad brands that want to see this, like really, really broad audiences that wouldn't know what a metaverse is, probably still haven't heard the term. We're talking about, as you say, people with integrated Intel graphics cards on their laptops, and it needs to work for that, which is maybe, I don't think that was the deliberate reason why our current metaverses are voxel and pixel based. I think that's more to do with how quickly you can get that stuff out versus not higher quality, but a more like high resolution world. And the other thing is how much it costs businesses to then produce those assets, and how many of those businesses are able to be convinced that, say you do, we use the Nike example, if you're going to enter 3 or 4 metaverses that are all vastly different in terms of the resolution and the style, then for each asset that you produce for each pair of shoes, you need to do 4 times the amount of work on them. And so you have to work out if all 4 of those are sort of super hyper realistic, that's going to have a cost to it more than if all 4 of them are sort of very low resolution pixel versions of those things. But the low resolution pixel versions can end up taking longer because of the fun world of licensing and going through a long process where, like you say, if the logo that was a 2000 by 2000 resolution picture is now a 20 by 20 block, getting that through to a big corporation and saying, well, this is what your logo looks like now, is very, very hard.
While you were saying that, I was picturing my head in the metaverse and pixelated, and goes, like, you see my Nikes? And you're like, are you sure those are Nikes?
Like counterfeit.
Are you sure? They don't look real to me.
That idea too of, in terms of like, how do we translate these images into these different worlds is hugely important. But I also think the concept of ownership is cool, right? So like, if you're wearing your Nike shoes in the metaverse, you want to be able to prove that they're yours, that they're legit, you know. I think that's one of the biggest things, and I'm sure everybody here in this audience, I don't need to preach to you, we get it, we get the concept of digital property rights. And that is, to me, you know, one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, that we're seeing in these new open, interoperable metaverses that we're imagining. However, it still feels like such a difficult concept to explain to people who haven't been like banging on the Bitcoin drum for years, you know, like they're not that worried about self-sovereignty or, you know, whether I actually own my digital assets. A lot of people are kind of going, you know, how can virtual land possibly be scarce, for example, and they don't really understand the need to own an NFT. It's like right click and save, right? So my question is, how important is this? Like, are we actually going to see, heaven forbid, Roblox, Meta prevail here, and people are going to, you know, enjoy metaverses but never actually own their digital assets? I mean, how big is this fight?
Well, the funny thing about this like whole ownership conversation for us, and like what do people care? I think the answer that we've had to solve that a little bit with Doctor Who, right? But I think as an industry, we are almost getting too obsessed with that as the only thing to focus on, right? Like we have, ownership is super important, but just pushing, hey, you own your assets, that's not a feature. That to me is like selling a video game by saying, okay, this is made in Unity. Like, no one cares. No one cares except you. You know, your developers, your business, the engine is really important. Your consumers don't care. And we've noticed that, like, working on Doctor Who for the last few years. So what we do is we don't talk about ownership on our website. We talk about the features behind the ownership, right? Which for us is, the obvious one is money. It's being able to trade cards like you trade Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and Magic cards, and you own them there. And then you can make money if you get a rare one. If you've got duplicates, you can trade them. Those are features. The technology, like, we're trying to move away from using the term NFTs, although it's powered by NFTs, right? It doesn't matter. And if you want to reach an audience outside of the crypto audience, which is growing, but reasonably still very small compared to the broad mainstream audience for a free-to-play game, you've got to, like, put the tech on the back a little bit, I think, and start focusing on features.
I was just going to quickly add to that. Like, I feel gamers get it. I've heard so many horror stories of people who have poured like tens of thousands of hours into a game, you know, winning cool assets or, you know, creating an amazing skin, and then the game's discontinued. Or for whatever reason, like, I heard one that someone was playing a game in Hong Kong and they moved to the US and you couldn't actually access it when you're in a different country. And, you know, that's like a part of you, part of your identity. And being able to actually own those assets so you can kind of port them around with you and be more part of your life could be a huge use case as well.
Well, just to add on, like, I agree with Rob. I think a lot of people are very hyper-focused on the ownership, the security and stuff, because that's a lot of, like, in the metaverse space right now. Like, okay, yes, you can buy and sell land. Yes, you can buy and sell NFTs. And so that's kind of the thing that everyone's, like, worried about, are those two things, like making sure it's authentic, making sure that all that. I think the next phase in the metaverse industry is kind of the thing that people have been waiting for, where it's not about it's about revolutionizing industries. It's about changing the way that economies operate and people get educated and businesses interact with people and we interact with each other. And so, like, if done right, which fingers crossed and will of God and all that, if done right, like, I believe we're gonna start moving away from being a product or being a metaverse. I actually see this as being like a societal movement, like something that actually could change and elevate not just one industry or one rail at the train station, but revolutionize all industries and elevate them in a very special way, if done right. And so that's kind of where I see this next phase or level or upgrade, I guess you could call, of the metaverse, is that's where things are kind of moving towards, where lives are actually going to be impacted on a global scale, which is freaking exciting.
I'm going to give you an example of how we're doing this in terms of ownership of NFTs, right? So we've been selling in Polka City land. We sold land twice. Every time that we sell land, it sells out in hours, and people fight because they couldn't buy it. But what we're doing is, I went to El Salvador a couple of months ago. I met with Bukele, and I met with the ambassador, and we started talking about things that we're going to be doing there. So, you know, there's about building Bitcoin City. So Polka City, it has acquired a few acres in Bitcoin City, which we're building some land and houses, real land and real houses. And when you buy your land and your house in Polka City in the metaverse, it's going to actually include real property in Bitcoin City. So when you buy it, hey, I have this NFT, I just buy it. Oh, really? When you go to El Salvador, you have a house with a key. And in the same way that we're doing this, since we're selling NFTs, that land, every time that keeps reselling and passing hands, is always going to be sold through Polka City, and the original owner of the land is always going to get royalties. So what we're doing is, if you have land or building a community that you want to sell in the real world, what do you rather do? Give it to a real estate company and a developer that is going to buy it from you once, or you rather build it so that it can be sold as NFTs in the metaverse and keep earning forever in the royalties of that land movement? So we're doing that before the end of the year. We should be already selling that land in El Salvador.
I love these projects that are really kind of blurring the lines between what is the physical world, which I always say physical, not real world. You know, people say real world, I'm like, it's all real, it's your version of reality. Yeah. So it's like the blurring of the physical and the virtual worlds, I think, is super cool. And we're probably going to see more of that, like rather than say just a Ready Player One fully immersive metaverse, I think, like more how we can actually blend our lives. I mean, this is all great. We've kind of been saying how awesome this is, but I just want to dig into something that was mentioned before around accessibility. You know, how do we actually make sure that these metaverses are inclusive? I think we hear a lot of narratives about, you know, I live in the Philippines, and we've heard about how people in the Philippines can kind of smash traditional geographic boundaries to be able to participate in this global decentralized economy. But how do we make sure that we are actually creating, you know, a wonderful brand new world that we want to live in, and not just replicating the same old structures of the past?
That's a great question.
Take it away,
You know, I think the way to do this, and it brings me to another thing, is if we're building these metaverses, we got to be responsible. We have to take responsibility. I mean, it's not all good. It's not all nice and pink. I'm telling you, 10 years from now, there's going to be new mental health problems because of the metaverse. There's going to be people who they're going to take their headsets out, and they're going to find out that they don't have the same girlfriend as in the metaverse, the same car as in the metaverse, and they live on their parents' garage. And that's going to be depressing. So I mean, that's going to be happening. So when we're building these experiences, we have to be responsible. We cannot have 10-year-old kids with a headset for 12 hours. You know, we have to work around that too. It's not just build, and sell, and make money. We have to take responsibility.
Well, and I can also kind of see the other side of the coin on that one. Like, I can see like the positive impacts of these like specific examples, like talking like so we're working with a couple of kid organizations because we don't have adult entertainment pornography. Like, we're kid friendly because we're working with some kid organizations for education, and because they're finding that kids these days are learning more through gamification than they are sitting at a desk for 10 hours a day. I'm the same way. I learn more through gamification and stuff. So like, here's a way to kind of revolutionize that industry and bring, like, I got a 6-year-old kid and he learns so fast coding and everything on his iPad more than I do at the moment. Like, they learn so fast. And even with like self-help, like I do see like people taking things out of moderation and getting too much into it. But then take the other side of the coin with self-help. Like, what if there was a metaverse place where people can go get self-help? Like, I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to go find an office that has a time and go drive somewhere and go meet somebody in an office. Like, what if I can go into a world and there's like a nice river, there's like birds, like it's a really like conducive environment, and I can get help with like mental addiction or depression or things that I'm really struggling with. I don't even have to dox myself. Like, I don't even have to show my face if I don't want to. I can go and get help in the world from an expert. They may not even live in my local area. Maybe there's somebody that is just this renowned person on the West Coast or the East Coast. Now I can go visit them and get help in an anonymous way if I wanted to. And then like self-building and learning leadership and self-help and all that kind of stuff too is there's another whole option for that. Now in the metaverse, where it can actually really help a lot of people. And same with the therapist. Like, they can do it from their house too. They don't have to go travel and set up and all that stuff.
So are you saying that I'm going to go to the metaverse to get therapy for metaverse addiction?
Yeah, exactly. There'll be a special therapist for that, yes.
On the broad like accessibility problems, like, I think it comes down to making sure you have a diverse staff building these things. Yes. Like, hire less white guys, hire more people of diverse backgrounds. I think COVID has helped. If there's one thing that COVID has done, it has pushed us to remote work. And as an industry, we have already cracked that problem. We don't want to take 20 years to hire our first woman, like the games industry did, like to bring people in and to make people feel wanted in those spaces. Which is
sometimes even with DAOs, for example, like the creation of DAOs and people just being able to come along and put themselves forward. They're kind of they're contributing based on their skill set, not what they look like or where they're from or their socioeconomic status.
Yeah, and that helps when we bring people up from our communities, which we often do, right? You find talented people that become moderators, that become community leads through Discord. That's never really happened before. Like that wasn't happening in games, and now it's happening for the first time to take people and bring them in. As an industry, we're doing that well, and I think that over time will lead to a more diverse thing. And the remote working just allows different people from all over the world to collaborate and to have the time. If you've got kids, if you need to take time and do stuff on a different schedule, that's possible. So we just need to focus on those benefits, make sure they're clear. And
and just to add on to that, because that's such a good point, like now you have people all over the world, like they can get education that they couldn't get education in the world. And then also like having an economy that's based off of global pricing, not local pricing. So now you got these people who are in these second, third world countries who are making like 10 to 20 cents like a day, like right now, and they're having to like sell themselves to brothels and stuff just to provide their family. Like now they can make 10, 20, $50 a day, and like it's like changing money because it's not based on their local price, it's global price.
Alex, I could listen to you all day. I'm really sorry. We're going to have to wrap it up. They're going to start playing the music in a sec. We've gone way over time. This is amazing, though. The big takeaway I took was that this is a tool. It can be used for good or bad, and we need to make conscious decisions in terms of how we build this metaverse. So I'm feeling very, very optimistic having listened to you guys. Thank you for an amazing panel.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.